Welcome back to the garage, my friends. Today we are installing something I am super excited to get in this truck. I've been doing so much like maintenance and performance mods to this thing lately. It's gonna be nice to do something that I guess I would call a driver's mod. It's gonna improve the driver's experience, and that is a new double din head unit from Atoto. And these guys reached out, asked me to give this an install, show you guys what that install process is like, do a review on it, and I'm excited to jump into this box, get this thing installed, because my old head unit, it's been in there since the last owner put it in. And honestly, it's an old, I think, Pioneer, and the buttons on the touchscreen just don't really function correctly. I just don't love the head unit altogether. Its capabilities are pretty minimum. This thing is going to be, no joke, like light years ahead of that old head unit. And hopefully it improves the sound quality out of the speakers that I have in the truck. So we're gonna jump into the install, and this process should be roughly the same for anyone with an already aftermarket head unit or anybody with a stock head unit. Should be pretty much the same. So let's get right into it. So I've never done a head unit in one of these trucks before, but I've watched a few videos on how to do it. So we can get the walkie out of the way. Also, I think it's gonna be easier if you have a manual truck, put it in reverse, or I guess second gear, and try and get that gear shift away from you. Make a little more room up here. Now, simple stuff first. This change little or ashtray, I use it for change. You pull it out and press down on this, and that whole thing will come out. In the video I watched, there's supposed to be a little plug here that you take out. Mine is actually missing it, and then on the install videos I watched, there's one on both sides, but mine does not seem to have it. So mine should, hypothetically, yeah, just pop right out. So we can go ahead and kind of pull that aside, and it looks like we've got our cigarette lighter or cigarette sockets that we need to unplug out of here. All right, so it looks like you just pull those off. We'll set those out of there, and this whole unit should come out. And then next, I think we take out this piece. So these just pull right off of here. They only go on one way, so don't be worried about, mixing it up. And I think these have to come off right there. Set those aside. And then somehow or another, I saw some guys using trim tools, but another one said just use your fingers to kind of, I don't know if this has to come out as well. I don't think so. Let's see if we can pop that off. I might try a trim tool here. See if we can get behind it. Okay, never mind. This just, I guess, disconnects and pulls right out. I think if you have a newer model Tacoma, this is on a first gen, by the way. If you have like a 2000 to 2004, this probably looks a little different. This is a 1998. But there we go. Now we've got the faceplate off. We can set that aside. We're on to some Phillips head screws. Camera probably won't pick it up, but there's a Phillips head just here that I think we need to remove. Pull that out. And that, honestly, I guess this guy will probably have to come off, my little phone mount. I think that's it. I'm gonna start kind of prying on things. There we go. And just like that, it starts to pop out. Obviously with this old plastic, just take your time with it. It's probably not, it's not new age stuff, so it's been in the truck for a while, but that should all just kind of pull out there. We've got some harnesses here. So this, I'm assuming, is probably the clock, or maybe, I don't know what this goes to, but we're just gonna start disconnecting these harnesses. I guess you could also set that maybe aside if you didn't want to unplug everything. I'm gonna go ahead and just unplug stuff. Also, you know what, before I do any of this, I'm gonna disconnect the negative on the battery. I should have probably started with that, but here we are nonetheless. I'm just gonna actually set this one. I can't figure out how to quite get this guy out. I think there's a depress there. There we go. Okay, so it's like a little spring clip almost. And I think we're on to removing the head unit, which looks like it's some Phillips heads, or I guess maybe 10 mil. I'm just gonna use a Phillips head in here. There's one. Try to not lose our hardware. Also, oh, you know what I should have done was make sure there wasn't a CD in here. I think there honestly might be. a problem for later. Turns out mine actually has 3 of the 4 screws in, so I guess we'll be using 3. I had a feeling, and I picked up an extra harness for this thing because I wasn't sure, one, if the harness that was on this Pioneer deck was gonna work, or if the guy before me even did this install correctly with getting a new harness. So we're about to find out. So now this head unit will pull out right like this, and let's see what's going on back here. I'm gonna start unplugging some of this so I can make some room for things and get this pulled out a little bit further. Get the little, I think these are RC cables out of here. Got a USB cable out of here. We'll unplug the harness off of the stereo and the antenna, and boom, now we've got the entire head unit out. Not too shabby. Here's a look at all the wiring I just pulled out from the old setup. So we've got this USB cable that basically used to house my phone cable and allow me to hook up my phone directly through this cable to the stereo. I believe these went to a subwoofer that the last owner once had in there. And then here's that harness that I wasn't sure if I was actually gonna be in there or not. And I think I could potentially reuse this. What we need is I think this side up to here, this is the factory harness, and this is the one that he would have bought to redo it. And honestly, he left all these cables just open. I mean, it's kind of a jank way to do it. Didn't bother heat shrinking these down. Also, I think these were for the amplifier. I picked up a new harness, which will basically be a new one of these. We'll have to splice together these to the factory harness, and hopefully it should be fairly simple, color-coded, and done right. So we can start unboxing this thing, see what it looks like, see what's in the box. It's got a smaller box. It's probably going to be like the cables and such, yep. So I think this is possibly an antenna. Or no, this is a camera of some sort. Interesting, maybe I think it's a camera, potentially like a dash cam. We've got some brackets to mount this head unit to the stock bolts. We've got, oh, that's cool. They give you some screen protectors for the new head unit, some instructions, and what is in here? Oh, it's a little plate to a trim plate. I didn't bother getting any more trim plates for this truck, but this one does come with a little trim plate in case you need it. So we've got a bunch of goodies in here. Definitely going to be using the screen protectors. I think that's really cool. They give you not 1 but 2 to put in there. Cables. Go ahead and open these up. The harness that's going to plug into the stereo, the Atoto. This is going to get spliced into here, and then this is going to, the end of this is going to hopefully plug into the stock Toyota, if I'm correct on that one. So we'll take a closer look. We've got, want to say this is kind of the same cable as this one that I could plug my phone into, or anything USB. Plug that into the stereo. This, I'm not too sure. I'm gonna guess probably some sort of antenna. I'm gonna guess this is gonna be for like extra speakers or subwoofer, or well, I guess that would be the amplifier if you had one, an external. So this thing actually comes with the ability to have basically self-service. So you can have like maps and all sorts of, you can have full chat GPT on this thing. So you've got a spot for a SIM card that would plug into the stereo. That guy, I'm not 100% sure on. And it looks like another one of these types of cables. And then this guy, I think, is the antenna for the GPS antenna. So we've got that in there. I don't know exactly what I'm gonna install yet. I don't know that I'm gonna do the GPS and the SIM card yet. I'm gonna like kind of feel it out, see what I actually need. And then inside of here, we've got the actual head unit, which looks pretty darn sleek. Let's get this unwrapped. So satisfying. So there we are. The new Atoto head unit. And honestly, before I do anything, I may put a screen protector on this. Yeah, I think that would be a good move. So last night I realized I didn't have enough butt connectors to wire up this harness to the one that I had purchased with the stereo harness. So I decided to exercise my practice with soldering. And I went ahead and soldered all the cables and then shrink wrapped them around to get a pretty clean install. And I've wired up everything coming off the Toyota harness, and then that leaves us with a few extra cables from the stereo harness. Like we have a 3mm jack for steering wheel audio control, if applicable. I don't believe this truck has that. We've also got parking brake. I don't know exactly where to put that. Again, I don't think it's applicable for my truck. Steering wheel key, again, don't really think that's applicable. We've got steering wheel key positive, so that other one was negative. And then we've got amplifier turn on, might be using this in another video. And then we've got rear camera. And rear camera, I do believe I can install, because right now my rear camera works with the stereo. I just checked it out to make sure everything was wired up correctly, and it will turn on, but only when I have my daytime running lights on, and that's basically how I wired it. So I'm hoping that with this on, it's gonna add extra power to the camera all the time, and then I can use my backup camera, like I said, anytime. But this is gonna have to be done inside the truck because my video cable from the rear camera is already wired through the truck towards the head unit. So I'm gonna put that in there, but essentially, this is gonna get plugged into the back of the stereo, and these two go into the stock Toyota harnesses. And come to find out, the last guy that had this truck didn't even, this is the rear speaker harness. The last guy didn't even have the rear speakers wired up. So when I found that out, I was pretty excited that I would have better audio, and I actually went ahead and got some new speakers for the front and the rear. I just got some kickers, some 6.5-inch kickers for the two front doors, and then the two speakers in the back of the truck. So now we're gonna have better speakers and actually working rear speakers. So here's the harness all wrapped up. Again, shrink wrapped the unused wires. This is gonna be the rear camera wire that I need to still do. And then I just used some Tessa tape to give it a nice OEM kind of harness wrap to finish it off and keep everything nice and tidy, keep things from getting hung up in the back there. All right, so let's get things a little organized here. We've got our antenna wire coming out, which is good. We've got our factory Toyota harness. There's the rear speaker harness. So we're gonna get those kind of up here. And then this guy right here is the cable that runs to it's the video cable for my rear camera. And then this yellow wire here is the one that I believe I need to attach to this pink wire on this harness. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, so now we've got this rear wire done up. The rear camera wire. I'm not gonna heat shrink this down because if I need to change anything, I don't wanna have to cut the cable all the way up here. I wanna just be able to cut this in half, and that way I can fix whatever I need to fix. So I think now comes the time where we reinstall the stereo. So again, on the back here, we're gonna plug in our antenna. Just sits right in there. We need to plug in our factory harness. So there's two of them. So this one is kind of the main harness for Toyota, and this is gonna be the rear speaker harness. So we'll plug that in. We can kind of tuck this behind and hopefully out of the way as much as possible. I'm gonna try and get this camera plugged in because I don't have much cable on it, and that one's gonna be a little bit easier to do with it closer. Let me just make sure that's the right one. Rear camera is plugged in, and the stereo harness last. There it is. So now we're just gonna carefully tuck all the wires up in there and slide the stereo back into place, like so. Now I haven't put the faceplate back on this whole unit yet, so I don't know if this is set too far back, set too far forward, so we're gonna have to just trial by fire, kind of plug it in and see what happens. So I'm gonna get these 3 bolts. There should be 4, mine only has 3, which should be more than enough, but we're gonna get, hypothetically, the 4 bolts that hold the stereo back into place. And there's 3, and then if you had your 4th bolt, it would just go down on this other side. I think now would be a good time to just power this on before we put the faceplate back on. Just make sure everything actually turns on correctly. So I've put the negative post back on the battery, so we should have power here. Just gonna go into accessory mode. It turns on, so that's a good sign. Okay, so I've already paired up my phone. Let's just hop over to, let's say, radio. So we're gonna go back to here, to the main page. We'll go radio.
And a defensive back from Chattanooga came up and almost picked that one out of the air before it hit the ground.
Great, so the radio works, the new speakers are working. So let's check out the rear camera, see if that wire made a difference. It did not. So what I have, wait, let me go into reverse. Yeah, I don't know what that wire actually does. So for mine, I have to have my daytime running lights on. And there's our camera. So pretty cool. I mean, eventually I'll figure out a way to wire it so that way when I actually go into reverse, it'll hopefully work. But for now, this works just fine. So we'll go ahead and shut this all down. I have to plug in a bunch of cables onto the faceplate, which includes like the airbag stuff. So I'm gonna disconnect the battery once more. All right, so big moment of truth. Let's see how we did. Let's go ahead and grab our large faceplate here. Kind of get this. Let's move that back in reverse out of the way. We've got to connect the cigarette lighter to up here. So, or 3 up here, my bad. So we'll go ahead and I think cigarette lighter is going to be the most difficult. So let's see, which one was that? That's a little LED. Those are probably for the 2. And this, I'm assuming, is the cigarette lighter here. So it should just go on, push on. Cigarette lighter should be all installed. Go ahead and put all these back on. Is there 4 actually? I lied, there's more than 2, there's 4. So let's see here, gray into gray, white into this black clip, and all kind of snapped into place so you know it's actually in there. Just double check our wiring, make sure nothing's getting hung up. This is getting hung up on the HVAC, so we'll just move that aside. Start to kind of wiggle this plate back in. I think we should be able to just cinch it back up. Something's getting hung up over here. You see, we're just getting a little hung up on this side. And you know what? I think it could be the stereo. It looks like the stereo needs to go this way just a hair, not much at all. So I'm gonna see if I can pull this back out and possibly just get a little wiggle room on this stereo here. So we'll just loosen up each of these just a hair. Let's see if we get any play. Yeah, just a little bit of play. Try and push over and down like so, and then cinch that back up. We're literally talking about like less than a millimeter. Okay, and then this last one, pop that back on there. I don't see anything hanging us up besides that, so let's try this again. There we go. I think that's all it needed, was just a little recentering of the stereo, which actually is super flush. That works out perfectly, and I didn't need any extra trim pieces. So the only thing I had to buy outside of the the stereo is the actual harness for the Toyotas. So that worked out really nicely, and this looks really flush and clean. So now that's all in there. I believe there is a small Phillips head that we had to put in. It goes right down here. And now we are almost done. We can put this plate back on, which should just snap right into place, just like that. And this is good for me to know how to do, because I need to go in and replace all these bulbs that illuminate the back side of this. They light it. I need to go in and fix those and replace a bunch. So it's good to be doing this. So we'll put our AC button back in. Hopefully that is good to go. Doesn't really snap in place, it just kind of pushes in. We'll put these little knobs on, which do not seem to be directional, so we'll just, there we go. That works. And then like I said before, you can only put these on one way, so it should go right back into place. Our knobs all work. Heck yeah. Then we can go ahead and grab this last unit, and the only thing we have to do on this is plug in the cigarette, or I guess the cigarette ports here So this will go like this. Oh, and then the bulb, which is going to go, where does this bulb go? I don't quite remember where that went. I think this bulb is actually supposed to go in the cigarette ashtray, perhaps. So we'll set that aside for now. Let me just double check. Yeah, I don't see anywhere else that bulb would live. So I'm assuming it's gonna go in that ashtray. So we can go ahead and push this down, hopefully into place here. You know what? I actually have no idea where this bulb goes. I don't see a spot for it. Obviously it has a home, but I don't see where that would go. So I'm going to, I guess, just tuck it away for now. I don't think it even works. The bulb's probably out, so we'll just push that back in there because I have no idea where that's supposed to sit. And then you would put your screws back in here if you had them. I'm missing mine. To put this ashtray back in, just press down and slide it in. There you go. Ashtray is in. And our center console is all put back together. I'll put my little phone mount back in the vent. All right, so let's go ahead and power on the stereo. This is gonna be your home page. Once you go ahead and do the actual SIM card in here, obviously it'll populate things like weather. I think this is like a phone tab. You've got Spotify, we've got rear cam. We'll just flick on my lights so it actually works. There you go. We've got rear cam on there. We can go back out of here. And then we can go to, this is gonna be like your apps. And this is just what it comes with. So you've got so many different options. You've got internet, Bluetooth, DVR, you've got equalizer, front camera, your files from your phone. You've got Google, HDMI. So you could actually hypothetically plug in like an Xbox to this thing and play video games on I mean, it's a 7-inch screen, but you could still do it. And then you've got, I'm assuming this is gonna be like different colorways. You could probably set, I don't wanna do all this right now and bore you guys, but you could probably set things like how you want the color to look. I think you can change the background, so I could put like a Toyota emblem back there or maybe a picture of my truck. You've got maps, music, palette, Pandora, pictures, Play Store, radio, rear camera, settings, Spotify, Torque. The Torque app, that's actually pretty cool. Somehow you could do tire pressure monitoring system, your updater, video, widgets, YouTube, CarPlay. So you can add, I think there's an app store. Essentially, you could add more apps to this. And then you've got things like your phone. Again, I don't want to go through and set this all up right now. So we'll just go back here. You've got the ability to make phone calls. You've got your dial pad if you want it. You can get to contacts. You can get to Bluetooth pairing if you're playing like Spotify from your phone instead of through the SIM card. You've got your music stored music, I believe. So if I had hooked up the external storage device, I could probably put like a thumb drive with a library of music on here. And then you've got your volume right there. If you hit the volume button itself, it'll mute, which is really nice. And then you've got some quick equalizer settings there. Outside of that, you've got your power. This will bring you to your apps. You've got up and down volume, and then also your microphone. So really cool. And like I said, this is actually integrated with ChatGPT, so you could, hypothetically hit the mic and say like, what is a great restaurant to eat at here in Chattanooga? And it would probably find you some great food. So really cool. The possibilities with this stereo are kind of limitless. It's having an Android platform gives it a lot of capabilities. You can customize it. And I have an iPhone, by the way, and this is all pairing up with my iPhone. So don't worry, it doesn't have to necessarily be an Android phone. So really digging this. I'm excited to basically start messing around with it, really learning all the different features to it. I'll be making updated videos to this once I get my next piece of kit for this stereo system. And then I also want to find a good place to put my front camera so we can access that, which would be, let's see, front camera right here. So pretty cool. Loving this thing so far. The touchscreen is so much nicer than mine, the old one on that Pioneer deck. I mean, it's so much more responsive. Yeah, I'm absolutely loving it. And it sounds great with my speakers. So far, so good. honestly the biggest shout out to Atoto for hooking this truck up. And it's a 1998. It had old 1998 rear speakers in it, which have now been upgraded. The head unit makes a world of a difference. And the fact that when I'm driving, especially driving stick, like when the buttons didn't work on my last head unit, it was so frustrating. You know, I'd be trying to like quickly turn the volume down or something along those lines. And, you know, I'm trying not to look down and take my eyes off the road, or I'm shifting gears, so I want to be quick with it. Just the responsiveness of the touchscreen is worth it in my opinion. But this is the Atoto X10 Android unit, and it's a 7-inch double din head unit. So if you guys are interested in picking one of these up, I'll have a link down in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and again, thank you to Atoto for sending this out. Super stoked to make this video as well as some update videos as I learn more about the head unit and start up, you know, adding more of those extra features onto it that I don't already have set up. So super excited. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. I'll see you next time. I think we'll be camping, so stay tuned, my friends. I love you. Keep elevating. Adios.